name is Joseph Cillo Jr. and welcome to Storytime from EdgyCatholic.com. I'm a writer of Edgy Catholic fiction. I've written a novel, When the Wood is Dry, an edgy Catholic thriller, and a graphic novel, Blind Prophet, and comes with a comic book series as well, and my Christmas novel, which is Merry Friggin Christmas, an Edgy Christmas Comedy, which we've been reading from, and we will continue reading from. We've read the first couple of chapters. We are now on chapter 4. And to give you a little commentary, we'll catch you up a little bit. Carlton St. Michael is a stand-up comic. His new routine is very anti-Catholic, anti-Christian. It's Christmas time. And he has tried out his new material at the Laugh Out Loud Club in Chapter 2. And in Chapter 3, he went with his manager and his friend Chico to McGinty's Tavern, which is a hangout next to the Laugh Out Loud Club. And he snuck away to the bathroom there and made a phone call to a rival agent. So he's planning to leave leave Lenny Gold, his manager, and get better representation. And it's kind of a dirty move, okay? But he doesn't care. He wants to get to the top as fast as he can. He also, at the end of Chapter 3, appears to have made contact with a pretty blonde woman who's in the front row and is kind of awed by his comedic presence, let's say. Okay? So we take up the story at that point. One little note about this chapter. I wrote this story originally as a screenplay where, point of view is not as important. So when I converted it into a book, I made it into the first person. I talked about this a little in the first Storytime episode. So this scene has a scene from the movie script, the screenplay, that I really liked. And it is not from the point of view of Carlton. There's no way he could know this. And so I have cheated to keep the scene in here. I've made a reference back to the Undying Rerun Network that Carlton is made aware of in the afterlife. So he can understand that this is how these events happened, and he then describes them. This is a little bit of a cheat for a first-person story because he's telling this from a perspective he really wouldn't have known. So I did not want to leave this out because it was just kind of funny. All right? So anyway, that's a little secret there. I mean, if you're reading a book, you may not even notice the little cheat there. But this is the only time I really do something like that. Everything else is really from the perspective of Carlton. Okay? So let's get started with Chapter 4, Accidents Happen. Tuesday, December 6th, 2011, the first day of the rest of my life. My arm jerked under her neck as I woke in the darkened bedroom. The woman next to me lay warm and breathing the breath of heavy sleep, thankfully undisturbed by my sudden movement. I closed my eyes. Who was she? It didn't matter how attractive she was, but I could not help noticing she was attractive. Blondes, they were my downfall. She was here, and I had someplace I had to be. Where was that? Oh yeah, the Today Show interview. I looked at my watch, 6:45 a.m. Oh, I was late. I got quietly out of bed. Leave a note, I figured. That would be the best way. Just let yourself out, honey. I gotta go. I found my clothes and got dressed quickly in the dark. She rolled on the bed and woke. What's your hurry, Tiger? She brushed her long blonde hair from her face. I'm late for the Today Show. Today Show tomorrow, you mean? I don't think the sun is up yet. I don't have time for this. Take your time. Let yourself out whenever you're ready. Let myself out? This is my apartment, you lousy shit. You said you wanted to watch Today's Show tomorrow. Yeah, Today's Show tomorrow. Sorry, gotta go. Well, don't bother coming back, you lousy creep. She threw a pillow at me and hit me in the head. She must have been some kind of athlete because she threw it hard. My senses came back in slow motion. A time bomb clicked forward toward detonation, culminating in the explosive pounding of my head. Hungover, I winced in pain. Sorry, baby. It was really great. But I gotta go. I hurried to the door of her apartment and ran down 2 flights of steps to the street, buttoning my shirt as I went, my coat slung over my shoulder. The slowness of my wits allowed only a creeping realization that I had no idea where I was. Yeah, the pretty blonde from last night, that was her. A few blocks from the Hudson, that would be the West Side. How did I get here? I could hear the memory of the clacking of subway cars, that awful screeching of its brakes. I remembered. The PATH train. Did I take the PATH last night? Why would I do that? The blonde. That was why. Today Show tomorrow. Yeah, she had a view of the river. The West Side. The PATH. Not the West Side. The PATH. The thought pierced my mind like a bullet in my pounding brain. Holy shit! I'm in Jersey. How the frig could I make it to the city today in Midtown? Well, Merry Friggin Christmas. I scrambled out the door and ran down the sidewalk past a Catholic school. St. Friggin Nicholas Catholic School, if you can believe it. I wondered if that was where they taught the elves to make toys. Buttoning my shirt, carrying my coat, I glanced around, trying to get my bearings. Some of the Christmas lights around the area were still lit in the pre-dawn light, which just me off the more. A plastic Santa glowed at me. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah, have another ho-ho, you fat bastard. What I would give for a magic sleigh to get me across that river and back to my city. Friggin' reindeer, never around when you need one. Nunny warned me about not staying out too late. Yeah, the damn blonde. Lust again. I felt like a dummy on the old bastard's knee. Now, Carlton, I told you, you have to stop chasing blondes. Okay, Lenny. So next time a redhead. I could feel him pulling my string. I needed a freaking cab, or a train, or some other way to get across that stinking river back to my city. Lust. What an evil sin. Ugh. I saw a cab drive by the intersection ahead. Salvation. Where there's one, there's usually more. I had to get there. I started jogging, then running. I passed a church at the corner and noticed the lady carved in stone, palms up in benediction. Our Lady, the Catholics called her. But she wasn't my lady. She was just a hunk of rock. I quickened my pace and reached the corner. I turned right, which would take me past the front of the church. Friggin' church. Why couldn't the cab have come from the other direction? I started to run as fast as I could manage past the church, and bam! What the frig was that? I glanced about and saw the soccer ball bouncing toward the street. The pain registered slowly in my dulled senses. A young, athletic African-American kid sprinted through the gate to the park across the street. He nimbly darted across the street, not watching at all for the traffic which greeted him with an insufferable blare of horns and screeching brakes that pounded my hungover head almost as badly as had the soccer ball. He grabbed the ball and gazed at me apologetically. I screamed in pain. "Are you okay, sir?" the kid asked as he bounced the soccer ball on the sidewalk. I looked down at the little bastard. "Kid, watch where you kick that thing. What are you doing playing soccer in December anyway? That ball is frozen like a brick." "Sorry, sir. Coach says we should practice whenever we can if we want to get scholarships. We play in the park before school." "Well, just keep playing in the street, kid. It's a great way to get yourself eliminated from the gene pool." "What's that, sir?" The roll of my eyes intensified the excruciating pounding of my head. Perhaps this therapy would help train me off this habit that, now that I was in Jersey, would likely land me dead in a barrel at the bottom of a river. "The gene pool, the gene pool," I shouted. "You know, Darwin, the survival of the fittest." "Oh, Christ, you're a Catholic. You don't believe in Darwin." "Oh, yes, sir. We learned about Darwin in science class. Just not sure what that has to do with playing soccer. Just keep playing in the street, kid. You'll figure it out." I turned and hurried toward the intersection again. "Damn Catholics. There's too many of them anyway. They should all go and play in the street." I finally realized I was half freezing to death and managed to get my coat on. And here's where things got a little interesting. I ran past the portal entrances to the church as fast as I could manage and slowed as I reached the corner. The cab had come from the right, so I wanted to cross the street to be on the side of the road that taxis would more likely be on. What made me glance to the right? Why would I glance to my right after I passed that infernal church? Past the parking lot, the great mural glowed iridescent. The resurrected Christ at the empty tomb radiated its own light, the light of the world with Christ as its source. Then, from right to left, the scene traveled backward through time, the backlit crucifix against the setting sun, and the nativity scene with its brilliant star. The sun and star shone impossibly in the morning darkness, like some dual star system in some alien landscape where time overlapped. The slow realization of the foreground image materialized in my mind last, most oppressive of all. The bread and chalice of the Eucharist beckoned in front of the central crucifix, inviting me into its mystery. The mystery I hated. The mystery I mocked. The whole friggin' fantasy of the Catholic faith condensed into a single friggin' painting, impossibly visible at this distance in the pre-dawn glow. I had to get across the street and as far from the wretched thing as I could. If you ever get the chance to catch my story on Earn, remember the Undying Rerun Network, you would get to see the things I had no way of seeing. Well, here's where they made a big deal about showing one Mr. Nicholas Pennymore in the cab of his truck, flipping through the channels of his radio as he waited for the light to change. And every channel had that infernal song on about some old woman getting run over by a reindeer. Well, old Nicholas was a born-again, Bible-believing Christian, like a lot of those watchers of the Undying Rerun Network. And he had a bug up his butt about that stupid song and a Perry Como Christmas CD just out of reach on the floor of the cab of his guaranteed overnight delivery truck. Yeah, they just loved this part. So while I was making a dash to the corner, old Nicholas, a large, muscular, truck-driving Christian with a long white beard, which he treasured since it gave him an ability to play quite the genuine Santa Claus, once they stuffed him up with padding to make him look fat, well, the light turned and he put his old crate into gear. His truck started rolling down toward the intersection where I needed to cross. But Nicholas, bless his Christian heart, kept looking at the Perry Como CD and not so much at the road, as that infernal reindeer accident song drove him mad. And they gave Nicholas a speaking role in the good old Earn production. Dad blang it, this ain't even a real Christmas song. What in blazes does an old woman getting run over by a reindeer have to do with a Savior getting born? Sometimes I think this scene was what made my story the all-time highest rated program on the URN. Man, those heaveners just ate this stuff up. So as I made it to the corner and began to cross the street, good old Nicholas Pennymore made a grab for the Perry Como Christmas CD, keeping one hand on the wheel, but both eyes off the road. And there I was in the crosswalk, with the right-of-way, staring up at this truck with the oversized abbreviation on the front of the cab, G-O-D, bearing down on me, and apparently no one in the cab. And genius me, oh so clever and smart, did I even try to get out of the way? No. I shouted at what looked like a driverless God truck in a fruitless and foolish effort to demand that it obey the rules of the road. No ventriloquist would ever make his dummy do something so stupid. I have the right of way, you schmuck. Well, I heard a screeching of brakes and then felt a crushing amount of pain as my body was launched forward and the truck came to a stop, thankfully before treading me under its wheels. Now, Carlton, I told you always to look both ways, I heard Lenny's pedantic straight man voice. But I had the right of way. You're damn right you did. Dead right. The bastard grabbed the punchline of his cheap joke. I felt my jaw go slack. If I were really on his knee, he'd have spun my head around. I looked up and saw the large letters G-O-D and the backlit form of the muscular Christian with his long white hair and beard waving in the breeze, looking like a vision of the Almighty himself come down off some Michelangelo painting. But I was an atheist, and I was sticking to it. You don't exist, I said. Welcome to my first death. So ends chapter 4. Accidents happen of Merry Friggin Christmas, an Edgy Christmas Comedy. Again, my name is Joseph Cillo Jr. I hope you're enjoying my story. And I hope one day we'll be able to see it on the Undying Rerun Network. But we don't want to pay the price of admission because you have to be dead. Okay? Again, Joseph Cillo Jr. I'm writer of Edgy Catholic Fiction. When the Wood is Dry, an Edgy Catholic thriller. Very different book from this one. It's very much a thriller and a tragedy. This one is a comedy. And it's kind of funny, but it's a very different kind of story. And this is Blind Prophet, my comic book, which is also kind of a supernatural thriller. So the comedy is, I'm trying to show the scope that you can write edgy Catholic fiction in a variety of genres. So I've got a kind of a thriller, and a supernatural thriller comic book, and a comedy for Christmas, which is kind of a gift for atheists for Christmas, which is, you know, can't There's not a lot of people giving atheists gifts for Christmas, but if you know an atheist, give them one. Okay, take care. We will see you next time for Chapter 5 of Merry Friggin Christmas, which is, let me give you the title, My First Death. Take care. We will see you next time.